Greetings guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. Over the past week, I have been making a lot of videos that focus around social media and kidfluencers and the parents of children who make content online. And today's video is not going to be any different. Today's video is a continuation of that. So if you haven't watched either of my last two videos, then please do go check them out. You don't need them for this video, but like you should watch them after this one since you're already here. You may as well stick around to the end for this one because I just think it's a really important thing to talk about, and because I had so much to say and I could not fit it all into one video, and I also think it like separates out very nicely into having it in like digestible chunks so that we all have a bit of time to process what's going on. I think that, you know, the conversations around social media and internet usage and internet safety is incredibly important and is something that is taken so for granted and so lightly. But before we get into it, on the topic of internet safety, I would love to tell you a little bit about today's sponsor, Aura. When you open a website, you are almost guaranteed to be met with a little, hey, please accept cookies to use this website before you can proceed any further. And a lot of the time there is not an option to not accept the cookies. You have to accept them in order to just access the website. And it's incredibly frustrating because when you hit accept on these boxes, you are accepting to these websites to store and sell your data to data brokers to make a profit off of your information. Through that, you are then opening yourself up to receiving a ton of spam emails and texts and calls, which are so incredibly annoying and also can be quite scary. I've been called once being like, hey, the police are gonna show up at your door if you don't pay this. Terrifying situation. Do not recommend. And also in extreme cases, it can even lead to identity theft. But like, you kind of have to keep hitting accept because, as I said, you need to use these websites. And that is where Aura is your best friend. Because with Aura, it just requires one click and they will opt you out of all the websites that are currently selling your data. And once you opt out, they are legally required to stop selling your data. The internet can be a scary and unknown place, but with Aura, you can feel safer and more at ease knowing that your information is protected, whether at home or on the go. I am not leaving myself and my family vulnerable to data breaches and brokers, and you shouldn't either. And if you don't want to either, you can go to my link, aura.com/kiwi, or use the link in the description, and you will get your first 2 weeks free, which is enough time for Aura to see if any of your personal data is being leaked. Thank you so much, Aura, for sponsoring today's video, and let's get into it. We have already established that I have no time nor patience for the parents of child influencers. I already yelled about it for like an hour and a half last week. So once again, if you want to go sit and listen to that, feel free to. But we didn't get to cover the parents of kids who make their own content. So in that video, I obviously ranted a lot about these very specific parents for putting their kids in a very specific situation. But we didn't get to talk about the parents of the immense number of teenagers who have their own like TikTok accounts that have built up immense followings. There are so many teenagers who have like millions of followers and they create their own content, like get ready with me's, like dance challenges, like just having fun with their friends, like doing their makeup, skincare routines, etc. There are so many kids who are in charge of making their own content and uploading that have gained huge followings. And, you know, this is obviously a little bit different because they're doing kid things. They're working on their own schedules. They're still going to school. So their parents aren't taking advantage of them, right? I think in general, the content your kids are making and posting online should be monitored. I'm saying this as someone who had pretty much unrestricted access to the internet growing up. I have been growing up with social media. Like, I remember when Instagram was created. I remember when like all of this was happening, and I have been following along the entire time. And I am someone who very much craves validation. I have always craved online validation. Social media was a huge part of my life as a teenager. I definitely posted shit on the internet that I absolutely shouldn't have. 100%. I can acknowledge that now looking back. But, you know, it was fine. I don't see the problem. Like, you know, everyone was doing it. So why should it matter? It obviously wasn't inappropriate or anything I shouldn't have been posting because everyone was doing it. Like, getting followers and likes and engagement is so validating. How could there possibly be anything wrong with that? Like, I'm having a good time. This is all just good fun. And, you know, it is such a normal thing for a teenager to like look at that and think that and not really have any further and deeper understanding of that, and also not really willing to look much deeper than that because it is such a normal thing to you, especially if you're growing up with it and you're seeing all of your friends doing it and you're seeing what the internet looks like through your eyes and the content you see and you engage with. You don't really think about the dangers of it and what could possibly be lurking underneath it. Sure, like, you learn about stranger danger and your parents tell you to be safe online, but like, you largely disregard it because they don't really know what they're talking about. You know what I mean? Like, in the sense that, you know, internet friends are something that are wonderful, and like, you do talk to strangers on the internet and you make friends, and it can be so beautiful and they can be such fantastic friendships. And so because that happens, it's very easy to throw away a lot of the other rules as well, with the like, parents just don't understand how social media works kind of thing. But like, there is some of what they say that really does need to be paid attention to. And like, we really do need to be thinking about the actual dangers of the internet and not just being like, grown-ups don't understand. They don't get it. This is just how it is now, because there is a lot of dangers on the internet. Kids do not think about what they are posting online because they are thinking about it from their own perspective and what they want to see and like the type of people they think are going to be consuming their content, and not really anything further than that. Because why would they think any further than that? You know, we live in a time where we are encouraged to grow up so quickly. We are seeing girls doing like full faces of makeups when they are like 10 years old. We are seeing full skincare routines with like anti-aging wrinkle cream and like retinol from preteens. We are constantly being sold things in order to fit into the mold of what society wants us to be. We are creatures of community and validation, and you see everyone with this one thing, so you want it because you want to fit in. We are being sold this idea of what we should be and what we should like. And most of that is not very kid-oriented. Kids are being exposed to all of this stuff that is supposed to be targeted towards like adults that has now just kind of been consumed as a general for everyone. And it's very upsetting to see happen, as well as like, because of this, you know, we are also living in a time where we are made to believe that we can find like love and validation within numbers. We are told to find this love and validation in numbers on the internet from anonymous people. We live in a time where everything is content. Everything can be monetized. Everything is something that you should share with everyone. Nothing is personal anymore. If you can share it, you should share it. If you can film it, it should go for everyone to see. Think about all the views this could get. Think about how many people would love to see this. Think about all that validation and that love and that attention. And if you can pull good numbers from something, you are told that you are lucky. And if you are doing it continuously, you're told that you have to keep going, that that's what you should want, that that is the dream, that being able to pull big numbers consistently on the internet is what everyone should strive for, because it feels so good to be loved. And having all that validation and all those numbers, that means that you are something, that you are someone, and that is what you should desire. Never mind that now the simple task of getting ready for school is work. It is something that you have to do, and you have to spend time like making it interesting and sharing it with other people. That is not something that is for you anymore. Never mind that now every time you go to do something, you think, oh, I should film this. Oh, I should post that online. Never mind that slowly you start to view every single thing you do as something that you could turn into content. Suddenly you start losing pieces of who you are because you've started sharing them with the internet, because you've been told that you are worth more when you are being seen and when you are getting that validation from strangers. You don't have anything of your own anymore, and you're supposed to be grateful for it. Being viewed by millions of people, or hell, even thousands, hundreds even, of people as a teenager is so much pressure. That is so much pressure. It really does shape who you are as a person. Because as a teenager, you don't know who you are. You are, at this point, like a product of your environment, being like who your parents have taught you to be, and then like these small group of people you've been around your entire life. You are not yet a fully grown person. You are in this like massive developmental part of your life where you are figuring out who you are, what you like, what you do, what you believe in. You are trying to find your center. It is a time when you are going to make a lot of mistakes, and you are going to fall down, and you are going to pick yourself up, and you are going to learn and grow. And then you are suddenly in front of so many people, and you're not allowed to do that anymore. Because if you make a mistake and that is broadcast to people, you're going to get met with so much shit, and it's going to hurt so bad when you are so young, and it is so detrimental to your growth. And so they don't let themselves make mistakes. They have to keep themselves from screwing up, from even changing. Like as a teenager, if you're being viewed by so many people, you have a brand now. Who you are and the content you put out is what people expect from you. And as soon as you start changing that and moving away from that, you see your audience change. You can see those numbers drop. You can see people who are here for a specific thing, they don't care about you anymore. And so it forces you to keep yourself in this box. You don't want to change, because if you change, it's all going to go away. At this point, when you are so young and this has become such a solid part of your life, the idea of losing it is unbearable, because you now revolve like so much of your own worth on these numbers, because that's sort of what you've learned. It's what you've been told. You've learned to rely on this stability in numbers. You have learned to take pride in that and find validation in that, and reading all the love from people and seeing all of that pouring in and being told by everyone that, you know, this is incredible. It's the dream. It's something you should be proud of, and to keep it up, and like, look at how much you're achieving. And it's also at this point, you know, when you're receiving that much, it's a source of income. It's a revenue stream. And a lot of these teenagers, a lot of kids who are producing content online and getting millions of followers and getting like brand deals and like monetization and like revenue from their videos, they become the people who are supporting their families. This isn't always the case, but a lot of the time, these kids end up being the sole providers for their families. Like one of their parents will quit their job to become a manager of their child, which just effectively means they get to take their kids' money. But they're doing a job and they're helping them grow their career by them not really having to do any work anymore. Not saying that being a manager isn't work, but like, you know, a lot of the time they're just kind of not doing that much. They are just doing it to get money off of their kids. But like, you know, no pressure. A lot of these teens, like, sure, they don't start making content thinking that it is going to go anywhere. They don't think they are going to grow an audience. They're just posting videos online for the fun of it. A lot of them are going to be hoping to grow an audience, but like, no one really expects that. And their parents also don't expect anything to happen. I think a lot of parents aren't even fully aware of how much you can do on social media and the way it can become a career. I think we're about to move into an era where parents are aware of that, but right now I don't think we're quite there yet. And so a lot of these parents, I think, don't really understand the full repercussions, and they don't really think about how many people have access to these videos, and they don't think anyone's really going to be watching them. But there comes a point, right? And like, I personally think if your child comes to you and says that they are posting videos online which are being viewed hundreds of thousands to millions of times, you should be concerned. Like, if I had a child who said, hey, I posted a video of me dancing in my bedroom and 1 million people watched it, my response wouldn't be like, wow, congratulations, I'm so proud of you, keep it up, keep doing it. I would be like, okay, hold on. What? Pardon? I'm sorry. 1 million people watched a video of my child dancing around in their bedroom? I'm a little bit concerned because, you know, thinking about the audience of people who exist online, right? Like, sure, there are a lot of children who are online also. There are a lot of other teenagers who are online. But if 1 million people are watching videos of like teenage girls dancing around in their rooms, I'm gonna have to question how many of those people are there with ill intention, you know? And I just like don't think it's safe to be posting videos of yourself like as a child to such a large audience, and yet these parents encourage it and don't actually question the damage that it can do, in the sense of like they're not questioning the types of people who are watching this content, or if they are, they just seem to think for some reason that it doesn't matter. They're like, well, as long as they're not interacting with my kid, it's totally fine that they're just like watching it. Because like, you know, look how impressive it is that their kids are pulling such numbers. Look how impressive it is that their kids, they're teenagers, they are forming careers now. They can make money. These like 15, 16-year-old kids, they can have a source of income. How fun. Some parents like to justify this sort of thing and having like such large followings on their kids' accounts by running the accounts for them, by having managed by parent in the bio. So effectively, you know, the parents are the ones who are uploading the videos and who are replying to comments, they're like filtering everything, etc. And I get that's like one step towards like keeping my kid safe, as in keeping them from seeing all the comments because they're in charge of filtering or whatever. But like, firstly, let's be so for real, they absolutely have another account on their phone and are going through and looking at this shit anyway. Like, they're aware. It just feels like so much more for show than for anything else, because like, here you are consistently putting your kid in front of a camera and sharing such a personal thing with everyone, because like, that's the thing about social media, is that it is personal, it is real. Like, it's fake, but it's real at the same time, in the sense of it's not separated from real life in the way that like other forms of media are. There's a lot to be said about kids in all entertainment industries, like child actors and the likes, but at least with that, they have like a set, they have specific hours, they're in a specific place for work. It is very much, everyone is aware that it is fake. They are like, have strict schedules with like how many hours they have to spend on camera and how many hours they aren't allowed to spend on camera, when they're allowed to be there, when they're not. Like, there are so many rules and regulations around it, and it is so separate from their real life. Whereas with social media, that takes place anywhere, at any time. Anything can be content. People assume that it's real no matter what it is. It is so entwined with reality, and once you do start pulling those numbers, you do start turning things into content and looking at everything as a way to turn into content and to get views. And it does become just who you are as a person. It very, very easily does just consume you. It's upsetting that there are so many parents who are just like validating this behavior and maybe setting up a being like, oh, you can only do it between these hours or whatever. Like, it doesn't really separate it from the fact that like it is part of their real life. It blurs the line so much between reality and fiction and work and play, and it kind of, you know, when something starts as for fun and it becomes work, it really does lose the fun element quite a lot, and it's no longer just like a fun thing kids are doing. It's a job, plain and simple, and it's like so easy for it to become their entire life. And this is made even more true with the recent rise of content creator houses, which I, again, touched on a little bit a few days ago if you want to go watch that. And of course, with the rise of these content creation houses, there are also kids who are wanting to jump into the idea, and therefore obviously parents are supporting it because kids cannot be moving into houses to live and work together without the support and consent of parents. And so this has led us to the addition of a very new content house that I believe is still adding members, called the Glow House. And the Glow House at present has, I believe, 17 members. I think they added one like today or yesterday, which is why I'm saying I think. Aged between 13 and 19, and they already have 2.2 million followers. They've been setting this up for a couple of months now, and most of the videos are just like introduction videos and then silly little fun group dance videos. They have 2.2 million followers, and individuals in this house, some of them have upwards of 5 million followers, which is a lot. Oh my god. And all of these girls are living in this house. There are also parents there. I don't know how many parents. I don't know whose parents. I do know that at least one of the girls who lives here is from the UK, and this house is in the US. So, you know, she's come a very long way to be there. Naturally, when you have a house full of 13 to 19-year-olds, most of them are, you know, students. And so you are asking yourself, do they go to school? What's happening here? How is this working? What is the situation? They do attend online school every day. Most of them were already doing homeschool before moving here, and the others, I believe, have been pulled out of school to now do online school while living here. And it's so funny, not funny, that like it's so easy for them to validate this and be like, they're still getting an education, so it's fine. And I'm like, online school, I have very mixed opinions about. I have made videos about unschooling, which I know is different to homeschooling, but like, I think online school is a good option sometimes, but I don't think it should be the go-to option. I think school is important for so many reasons. And I think the fact that, you know, you've been pulled out of school in order to do work and have a job while you are a child is bad. Parents that willingly pull their kids out of school so their children can have careers, incredibly questionable. I don't think children need to be having careers that require so much time they cannot attend school. Even when it comes to like child actors, they have like a classroom with actual teachers that come in, you know? Like, I think it's weird to just sit down at your dining room table, do a couple hours of school, and then go to work, you know? Anyway, the purpose of the Glow House, and the reason it is called the Glow House, is to make uplifting content to inspire others, in particular to like inspire other young girls to do good things. They do this through a podcast where they talk about like inclusivity and, you know, bullying and girl power and kindness, etc. They have an uplifting podcast that they've created in order to help inspire people and give people validation and hope, etc. And then they also do a lot of charity. They make content about charity work that they are doing. They have videos of them going to volunteer at like food banks and at a women's shelter. And of course, these are wonderful things to be doing. I am not at all saying that like people shouldn't volunteer at food banks or like women's shelters or anything. I think that those are really cool things to be doing, and I think that we should be encouraging people to be doing those things because it is important to help your community and to have a deeper understanding of people who are experiencing hardship and they deserve help and compassion. And I think that's an important thing to be sharing and to be doing. And I think that it is incredibly admirable for people to have big platforms and wanting to use those platforms to help people. You see having a lot of numbers, and it's like, with a lot of people following me, I want to lead a good example. I want to help people. I want to inspire people. That's what I think I should use my platform for. And I completely admire that and I empathize with that because I am in the same way. I've always wanted to build a platform where I am able to help people. That was my goal for my entire life. As a teenager, that is something that I really, really wanted to do. And it is something that I actively worked towards. I was so proud of myself when I was like 15, 16, because I had an account that had like 1,200 followers. And the entire purpose of the account was to like inspire people. It was like my eating disorder recovery account, for context. And I used it because I, was healing and I wanted to inspire other people to heal. And I put so much pressure on my shoulders where, I then didn't think I was allowed to struggle myself. And I had to be this like rock for everyone. And I wasn't allowed to ever slip up. And if I did, I had to like hide it and keep it to myself and etc. I still struggle with that a little bit now, even as an adult. That was me at like 15, 16. I felt so much pressure to try to like inspire 1,000 people. I cannot imagine the weight of millions. Like, that is so heavy. That is so heavy. The thought is lovely. Looking and seeing, I have millions of followers, I want to, inspire them to do good. Like, that is a lovely thought. However, it is not the responsibility of children to be doing that. It is important for kids to be doing good things and doing good deeds and learning about these things. And if they want to go to a food bank or a women's shelter, etc., absolutely encourage that. Organize like school trips there, organize going with friends, talk to your friends, inspire people in your community to go and help. But when they are, firstly, not going to school and like dropping their entire lives to be doing this, specifically to help inspire people because they feel a responsibility on their shoulders to do that. They look at their life and go, I am in a position where I am responsible for bettering other people's lives and getting other people to make change. That is way too much pressure to be on a kid's shoulder. There's just something like so sad about being at a place where hopelessness is so deep that kids are watching people suffer and they are watching adults and the people around them not do anything about it. So they make the responsibility their own. They're like, well, adults aren't doing anything. No one is helping. So we, the next generation, we have to be better. We have to do more. So I'm going to go out and do something, and I am going to inspire other people my age to do something as well. If adults don't step up, then we have to. Adults are letting kids take this responsibility. They are letting kids put out the fires that they started themselves. And it's praised. It's encouraged. There are people who write articles being like, heartwarming news. Children are going and spending time donating money. They are spending time at food banks. Look how incredible this is. What amazing news. And it's like, it's not. I don't call that good news. I call it quite devastating, actually, that we are in a place where kids are the ones who have to do that, are the ones who take that responsibility because no one else will. That is not the responsibility of our children. That is the responsibility of adults. And this work is emotionally taxing. This is heavy work. And I know that some of these people are adults. They're like 18, 19, but a lot of them also are not. And I think 18, 19-year-olds being like leading younger kids into this, it's, you know what I mean? Like, there needs to be more separation in the adultness of the situation. And I just like know that their parents are standing here being like, I'm so proud of them. Look at all the good that they're doing. I'm so proud of all that they're doing. Look at what they're giving. Look how kind and thoughtful and generous my child is. I'm so proud of you. But I have a question for these parents. And that is, would you be allowing your kid to do this if they were not earning money from it? Would you pull your kid out of school and then put them on online school so they could go and volunteer at food banks and women's shelters, and so they could live with their friends and play games and dance and like take videos? Would you do that if they weren't earning money. Because I am so sure that you wouldn't be. In which case, this is not about being proud of your kid for what they want to do and for the charity work they're doing. It's you being happy about the fact that they are earning money and have a career as a child. They are able to do charity work and good deeds whilst also having a private life and attending school. You can do both of those things. I am not at all trying to imply that like these kids doing this content and posting it online makes it ingenuine. A lot of people are, claiming that it's disingenuous because it's not a good deed if you're posting it online. And sometimes that is true. I agree. However, these are a bunch of like kids or like, people under 20. I'm counting 19-year-olds are kids to me. It's a group of these, teenagers, these kids who like, they don't view it that way at all. They genuinely are doing it because they think it's a good deed and they want to inspire other people to do it as well. I don't think they are doing the good deeds for clout. I truly do believe the intentions of this, especially like the younger ones, especially, it is to do good and because they want to inspire people. The parents, however, I question. It is so easy for these parents to sit back and say that they are just supporting their kids' dreams and their ambitions and they just want them to be happy and do what makes them happy. But that is such an ignorant point of view to be taking. Like, it lacks so much understanding and has so much disconnect because your kids are happy, sure, but did you ask why? And I'm going to ask the same question again in a slightly different way of like, okay, are your kids happy because they are enjoying what they're doing, or are they happy because they are receiving really good numbers and a lot of validation from people online? Because if you took away the TikTok aspect of it, if you took away the content creation part of it, if your kids were just with their friends and, doing these dances and this get ready with me content or these like skits or whatever, and they were not putting it online for people, would they be having the same amount of joy out of it? Would they feel the same amount of happiness? Would they get the same level of satisfaction out of doing it? If the answer is no, then it's because the views and the success and that feeling of that is what is actually creating the happiness. It is not the simple act of just being with your friends and having fun. It is the sharing it and the receiving of all of that outside validation. And that is like numbers that you as a parent have no control over. You have no way of filtering that audience. You have no way of knowing who is watching, who is interacting, who any of the people commenting are. You don't know anything about the situation really, other than being aware that your kid is putting themselves online for millions of people to see. And you just sit there and go, well, they're happy. And it's like, you should know what they're doing. You should understand what they are doing. And if something is important to your child and they are dedicating their time to it, you really need to know what that is and like have an understanding of why that is and what about it makes them happy. Have you cared to notice how much attention they are paying to that? Have you cared to notice how much they have become absorbed in that, or do you just not care? And I know that I'm speaking very generally, but like these kids are posting like several TikToks every single day. And also I'm speaking as someone who has been making content for a very long time. The past 5 years, obviously, I've had like a relatively large audience. And prior to that, even with a small audience, it became consuming. And I may be projecting a little bit, but based on also the other people I know and the teenagers I've seen from like my little sister and my friends' siblings, etc., it feels pretty accurate. So I'm just rolling with it. But yeah, ultimately, analytics are addictive and we pay attention to them and we figure out patterns and we know what performs well. And when something performs well, you try to repeat that because you want to get more content that performs well. Kids are smart, but they also know a lot less than they think they do. They know more than you think they do, but less than they think they do. And they also oftentimes think they are a lot older and more mature than they actually are. And this means that they will notice patterns in their views and they will play off of that without really always thinking about why those patterns may be there or what it may mean. And what is one surefire way for young women to guarantee good engagement? We all know the answer. There is so much content of young teenage girls on TikTok wearing very minimal clothing, doing, challenges and things that focus very heavily on cleavage, on hip movements, on fit checks where it's very much focusing on shapeliness and extra focus on their butts, etc. There's so much content like that because it receives a lot of engagement. They get a lot of views. It's some of the more viewed content from these creators. And, there's also videos of these kids who are doing get ready with me's or dances and things that start with them wearing low cut tops and then leaning over the camera. And it works, right? It's getting that engagement that they want. And I'm not saying that teenagers can't do this. Kids can wear what they want. There is no problem with teenagers wearing short shorts and crop tops, etc. There's no problem with kids dancing. I don't care. Do what you want, go for it. I'm not going to stop you. I think that we all have the freedom to do that. And I think that people who look at kids in a fucked up way are definitely the problem. And when I was a teenager, I was also posting shit on the internet, again, that I probably shouldn't have been, where I was over-sexualizing myself a bit because I didn't see the issue with that. I didn't really think about it. I knew it would get more engagement. But I had my own trauma and shit that I was working through that I think contributed to me participating in that. But it wasn't viewed by anyone. No one saw it. So it ultimately didn't really matter that much. And in hindsight, I'm very glad for that. But these kids are putting it out for millions of people to see and not really thinking about why it has more engagement. It's kind of having a general understanding of it, but not really thinking that much deeper into it and not really caring that much because it doesn't feel real. It's so disconnected because it's such a horrifying thought that why would you ever really consider it in such intensity? However, parents know these things and should be aware of these things. And the fact that these parents know their kids are posting this online, and if they don't, they absolutely should know that they're posting this online and just don't care, really rubs me the wrong way because you absolutely should care. And when these accounts are the ones that are managed by parents, it's you are actively uploading that content of your teenage daughter. You are doing that and you know that's what is happening and you are uploading it anyway. You are not only viewing this content of your teenage daughter sexualizing herself a bit, but you are also putting that on the internet knowing millions of people are going to watch it. And not to say that every time you wear short shorts and dance you are sexualizing yourself, and I think that in general teenagers sexualizing themselves should not be viewed as such by adults. But I also know, as someone who was a teenager who did such things, teenagers often are sexualizing or objectifying themselves to get that sort of attention because they know that they're going to, and they don't really see the issue with it or thinking about it too much. And it's just a really complicated, horrible mess. And parents should absolutely not be facilitating in that happening. We reach a question of, so what can we do about it? Because, kids have phones. They're gonna do what they want. Parents can't really stop their kids from uploading on the internet because relationships between anyone requires trust. And I don't think parents should be going through their kids' phones. I don't think parents should be confiscating phones and not letting kids have phones. I personally benefited a lot from having social media as a teenager. So I am an advocate for kids at least having access to viewing social media. But I think the most important thing, as with every relationship and something I talk about a lot is communication. Communication and honesty are the most important things. If your child expresses an interest in posting videos or posting content online, then ask why. I think that knowing the motive is really important, and like having that understanding of why they want to post content and what content that is incredibly important to this entire conversation and how to move forwards. If they are children, like kids under 13, then they can do what I did as a kid and what all my friends did, and I'm sure a lot of you did as well, which is we used to just film silly little music videos and things. We would go into like Windows Editor, which I guess now would be like iMovie, and we put a bunch of like silly effects and things on it. We would just make silly fun videos that we thought were so fun and so cool. And then, you know, I don't even know where they are. It'd be so fun to find them, but like maybe they're on a DVD, maybe they're lost to the world, who knows? At this point now, you could put them on YouTube as an unlisted video and share the link with their friends and family. You could burn it onto a DVD if anyone still has a DVD player, or put it onto a USB stick, etc. You can have this video that they were able to create and be proud of and share with their friends and their family, or even just like, you know, kids at school, if they wanted to share it with kids at school. Then that's a way that they are still able to do that and create it. And that should make them happy. And if that doesn't make them happy, then it's because it was about the views and the engagement, in which case you need to have a conversation with them about that. And you need to make sure your kids feel validated and loved and accepted and encouraged, so that they don't feel the need to go and look for it elsewhere. And I'm not saying that kids who crave validation and want views and likes is because their parents don't love them. That's not what I'm saying at all. I think both those things can exist, but I think that if you have that conversation around, you know, what validation is and like working at making them feel good and proud of what they are doing, and maybe coming to some sort of understanding and agreement of them being able to do what they want and like share that with friends and get that love from everyone that they share it with, that feels like a good alternative. When they're a teenager, it gets a little bit more complicated, because there is now a societal pressure around these things, and, you know, people are seeing their friends doing it. They are inspired by other teenagers or even by older people. It's such a normal, accepted thing, and it's just like a part of who we are at this point, unfortunately. And I think that there is such a social pressure and that need to fit into getting those views and that validation, and it is like a status thing to be able to achieve that. And so I think, once again, first and foremost, it is important to make sure your kid feels seen and accepted and validated and loved, and know that, you know, they need to first and foremost like love themselves and validate themselves and have good friends and connections and support groups, and find comfort in knowing who they are and finding themselves with themselves. They can have an account and make content, but keep it on private, where you can monitor, you know, who follows them, or like just having it open to people who they go to school with, etc. Like, if they want to make videos, they can do it on friends only, or they can do it on private. If they want to be a content creator when they grow up, if their dream is to be an influencer, this way they still get to make content and practice doing that, and through doing it they can figure out who they are, what sort of content they want to create, and they can make all the mistakes that they need to make away from the public eye, and do it on their own time and their own terms, and share it with people that care about them. And then by the time they are able to make that decision for themselves, they will have gotten all of the mistakes out of the way. They will have found who they are and know what they believe in, what they want to make, what they want to share, what they want to say. And they will be able to do it more confidently, because they have built who they are and who they want to be, and not something that a wider audience shaped them into. Let them build on their passion until they are ready. There's no harm in just waiting a few years. They do not need the head start of starting as a teenager and doing that in front of everyone. Like, it might not work out if they start later, but it also wasn't guaranteed to work out if they started earlier either. And like, this gives them a proper, you know, time at school, and it allows them to be kids while still doing something that they love and are passionate about and building into something that they want to do. And it means also, obviously, they have other job prospects that aren't just influencer, because it is important to know that like it doesn't work out for most people. They may hate you in the moment, and they may think that it is super unfair that they aren't allowed to make content the way that their friends do, and they want to share it and post it and get all that like attention and start now before it's too late. But like, I promise that one day they will be really grateful for that, and they will thank you. I have always wanted to be a singer. My goal my entire life was to make music and to be a singer. And then when I got a bit older, I also combined it with wanting to be a YouTuber. That is something that I wanted to do from the age of like 12. Singing and YouTube were like my two things that I wanted to do. And I really wanted to do that when I was younger. I wanted to like be famous when I was a teenager. That's something I tried to get a lot of followers and whatever when I was younger. I didn't have the commitment to do YouTube. I tried a couple times. I did not have the time or commitment or anything. I stuck to my like silly little Instagram accounts and like fan accounts and stuff. And I am really glad that I properly like didn't start doing this until I was an adult. I am so glad that I did not have an audience until I was an adult. As much as I wanted to have that as a teenager, I'm so grateful that it didn't work out the way that I wanted it to in that regard, because I was putting so much of myself on the internet as a teenager. I found it really hard to stop doing that, but I put way too much of myself on the internet. I made way too many mistakes there. I grew and changed and went through so much, and I'm so glad that it was only a couple hundred people that saw it and not a couple million, because that would have been detrimental to me. Waiting until you're an adult to make decisions and to share yourself is so important, because you need to know who you are and like the ability to decide what to and what not to share. And you need that time to grow and like become a person before you're able to make the decision to share that with other people. Sometimes you have to make decisions that hurt the people you love in order to help them in the long run. Sometimes you are going to have to make decisions that upset your children, and you just have to accept the fact that they are upset, but it will be better in the long run. I don't think that kids who are making content have done anything wrong themselves. I understand completely why they are doing what they are doing. I understand how they got here. I completely empathize with every single one of them and don't think they do anything wrong to get into this position and what they are doing. I understand, and I get it, and I empathize with them. However, all these parents, I need better from them. I think we need to talk to our children. We need to have better boundaries and rules around kids on social media, and we just need to be better. Talk to your kids, support your kids, and keep them safe. That is your job as a parent. I don't know if this is controversial at all. I know that talking about like kids online is like such a big conversational topic, and I know there's a lot of like, this is just where we're at right now, this is just how life is, this is society. Maybe my age is showing, my big old age of 25, but I think that it's such an important conversation to have, and I'd be really interested to hear your opinions and like your thoughts about what you think can change and what should change, and like how you were as a teenager, what you think, etc. Please let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to check out my other videos on this topic for more in-depth conversation around the thing as a whole. Yeah, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a like down below as well. A massive thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Arsene, Stella, Bay the Trucker, Chastity, Prismatic Petey, Sushi, M.A. Ping the Games, Phil the Duck, Jessie, River, Queen Glimmer, Ella, Lady Nutbar, Mr. Noodle, Radsack, Knitting Menace, Samuel, Chris, Ellie, Alexis, and Bobby. I love and appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah. When you close your eyes, you replay